Okay, in the last video, I showed you the genetic terms that we use consistently through all of our genetics problems, and showed you kind of a step-by-step guide on how to solve genetics problems. If you haven't watched that one, I'd go back and take a look at that video. But here are some other examples of monohybrid crosses, or crosses that simply involve one trait, and how to do them. Okay, so let's take maybe an example like this. Okay, so here's another typical problem. Mendel crossed pea plants that were heterozygous tall with short pea plants. What genotypic and phenotypic ratio did he get in the offspring? Is there enough information in the question? Well, let's see if we can figure it out. Let's make our key. So the gene that we're talking about obviously is height, right? And the alleles that we would have are, it's tall when it's heterozygous. So that means it has two different alleles, and it's going to show the dominant trait if it has those two different alleles. So tall is the trait that it shows. So let's make big T tall and little t short. And so if he crossed a heterozygous tall, that's a big T, little t. That's how I knew tall was dominant, because if short was dominant, then I would have to make whatever that was show up. And he crossed it with a short plant. In order to be short, you would need two recessive alleles. Complete the cross. Let's make that Punnett square. Okay, one parent's gametes when we separate them, big T, little t on the side. The other parent's gametes when we separate them go on the top. Does it matter who goes where? No, just as long as you're consistent. Let's complete the cross. So we have big T, little t, big T, little t, little t, little t, little t, little t. And if we were to do the genotypic and phenotypic ratio for this problem, we would say geno, pheno, I get 2 big T, little t's to 2 little t's. Now, when we're doing ratios, it's always a good thing to reduce the number if you can. So both of them are divisible by 2. We could put 1 big T, little t to 1 big T, little t. If it asks you to do it or to write it as a whole number percentage, then we would put 50% big T, little t to 50% little t. If it asked you to write it as a decimal, or a number between 0 and 1 rounded to 2 decimal places, then we could write it like 0.50 big T, little t, 0.50 little t. All of those things mean the same. Okay, it's the diploma exam would ask you how do you, or ask you how to record it. Okay, a number between 0 and 1 rounded to 2 decimal places. This is bigger than 0, smaller than 1. Here's my 2 decimal places. If it says write it as a whole number ratio, 2 to 2 or 1 to 1, both of those should be correct, right? If it says reduce it, you're definitely going to want 1 to 1. If it says whole number percentage, there you go, 50-50. Okay, the phenotypic ratio, again, would be all these different ways to write it. We have 2 tall to 2 short. Again, that can be reduced to a 1 to 1 ratio. It can be 50-50. If we're talking about percentage, it can be 0.50, 0.50 if we're talking decimal. Okay, and again, in this case, we're giving tall, short, which is what the physical characteristics are, which is what phenotype refers to. And here we're giving the alleles that are present for the gene. So big T, little t, and little t. Monohybrid cross. One gene comes in this case in 2 different forms, a dominant form and a recessive form. And yeah, so Next I will show you a test cross.